Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Evans Tuckey, and I am the Assistant Program Director for Regional Recruitment for the East Coast here at St. Louis University. I would like to welcome you tonight to Understanding Your Financial Offer webinar. This is a webinar style presentation, so your cameras and your sound are off. Unfortunately, you just get to see and hear us for the evening. But you can use that Q&A feature, the question and answer down at the bottom of your screen to communicate with us tonight. If you would like to ask questions, you can either do so with your name or anonymously and send that, and we will be happy to answer your questions. At the end of the presentation, we'll go live again and answer some of those questions for the group, things that we think would be helpful for everybody. We do also have a chat feature on this webinar. Throughout the evening, we'll be dropping links in the chat to things that we are discussing that you can find more information about on our website. That could be either information directed towards our Student Financial Services website, or maybe some of the other like housing costs or scholarships and loan options that we may talk about through the evening. So make sure to watch your chat. But again, if you have questions for us, drop them into that Q&A. Tonight, we have a great round of colleagues with you. Along with myself, you'll hear from Stephanie Dugo, who will be reviewing the financial offer. We have Kelly Mishler and Megan Christian on the Q&A for us and working the chats for the links as well. And Hannah Smith from Student Financial Services will be going live with us later to answer some of those questions for us as well. This evening, the flow of the program is really to give you a foundation of what to expect when you do receive your financial offer from us here at SLU. We're going to go over an offers kind of step by step tonight. It'll go into an explanation of the different costs at SLU, the different types of aid that you may be eligible for, the loan options and the payment options to really give you a foundation for understanding when you do receive that offer from us. We're excited to have you, and let's go ahead and get started. And I will turn it over to my colleague, Stephanie Dugo, to begin.
Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate it. Well, good evening, everyone. We are thrilled to have all of you here join us this evening virtually to cover the financial aid offer. And so what I'm going to show you is we have a student's financial aid offer here called Billy Billiken, and we are going to go through exactly what the different types of financial aid are. So to start, I'd really like just to explain kind of what financial aid is. Financial aid is really any funding that you receive or a college student receives to go to college. And so that can be broken up into several different categories. The first one being grants or scholarships, which is money that they don't have to pay back. There's student loans, as well as federal work study. And so we're going to cover all of those tonight, and you'll see them here in this financial aid offer. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you exactly what you're going to receive. So I would say one of the things that I'll start with as well is that you will receive your financial aid offer within the next week or two. And your student is going to receive it directly to their personal email that they applied with, or their SLU email account. They'll actually receive it to both email accounts. And so they are going to have a link that is individualized to them that they will click on, and they are going to see a screen that looks like this. And so this is very individualized to the student, so it'll show their name and all of the contact information that I'm going to show you. We will send parents an email letting them know that their students received that email, just in case one of your students maybe isn't always the best at checking their email. We understand that as well. And so they can forward that email to you, parents, and you'll be able to click and see the same thing. So let's go ahead and get started with Billy Billiken's financial aid offer. And so here at the top, you'll see that it is the financial aid offer for 2022 to 2023. And in it, you'll see your admission counselor. For incoming first-year students, your admission counselor is also your financial aid counselor. And so you'll see their name, their phone number, as well as their email address. So you're welcome to follow up with your admission counselor once you do receive this financial aid offer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about cost of attendance. And so I really want to spend a little bit of time on this to explain direct and indirect costs. so that you can see where the financial aid directly affects and all of that. So first and foremost, we're going to focus on the direct costs for financial aid. So direct costs include tuition and fees, as well as housing and meals. And so that is sometimes referred to as room and board. So we'll start with tuition and fees. Our tuition itself, including the fees that are $800 and I believe $24, they combined to a total of $50,644 per year. So you'll see on the screen that there's a total and there's fall and spring. So I always work in the totals. So just so you know, I will share the totals, but you pay by semester. And we'll of course talk about payment plans and different things of that nature. But you take that total and you'll split it equally in half to see both the fall and spring tuition and fees. Going below that is your housing and meals. And so room and board is wrapped up into one price, and our average room and board is about $13,890. One thing that I would like to highlight about the room and board or housing and meals is that this will fluctuate based on the residence hall that you're placed into. And so, for example, if you select a residence hall that has community style living, the housing and meals would probably go down a little bit. If you select suite style, it could go up a little bit from that $13,890. If you select a single room, it'll probably go up a little bit more significantly, right? And whether it's a community style or a suite style room and board or housing and meals. And so our direct costs for the university are $64,534. And so that's the cost that you will actually be billed from the university. So when you receive a bill in July, it will be for the $32,267 less everything that we're going to talk about tonight. I share that because we also share with you our indirect costs. Now, our indirect costs are going to vary from student to student, and they are really for budgetary purposes, right? So really and truly, this is so that families can take out a Parent Plus loan or a loan to cover the remaining costs outside of the direct cost to the institution. So for example, students will pay for books and supplies. Books will vary by student. We certainly have used new and used books. You also can buy them to have them online, new or used. You can also look at various different websites to see if you can find the books at a discounted rate. So this is just really the average for our students. Personal expenses, that includes things like going out for maybe pizza on Friday night, those different miscellaneous personal expenses. One of the things I'd like to highlight within this link that you're going to receive is you have these question marks. These question marks will actually give you additional information about each of the categories, right? So here it lets you know what the tuition and fees are. So the fees would be things like the rec center, the library, ITS, all of that kind of stuff. And so those are things that everyone pays. Housing and meals will also tell you just about the dining costs as well as the meal plans, and then books and supplies. And so this is based on research and survey. So here for the personal expenses, this is just really an estimate of what we think students will need to live for that semester. So, maybe toiletries, pizza, things like that. And then the additional indirect costs are really, again, going to vary from student to student, but we estimate this for like transportation. So when you think about it, if you're looking at a student that lives in California, because we do have students from all 50 states, their transportation costs are going to be very different than a student that maybe lives in Chicago or New York or, wherever they do live. So those are very different from student to student. So the total estimated indirect costs are $6,142. And so that brings a total estimated cost of attendance to about $70,676. And so I just want to clarify that again, these are just estimates and they will vary by student by student. But the number that we're going to work off tonight, I'm just going to scroll up, are these direct costs, because this is what will actually be billed to you from the university after they go through SLU 101 and all of that. All right, so moving on, as I had mentioned, there were 4 different types of financial aid that you can qualify for. And so we're going to start with grants and scholarships because those are the ones that you don't actually have to pay back, right? So that's the scholarships and grants are the ones that everyone wants because it is money that you don't have to pay back to anyone else. And so it is what we call gift aid. So the first one is the SLU University Tuition Scholarship. So now your merit-based scholarships, you would have received in your admission email. And so they vary anywhere from about $4,000 to about $25,000, and you are automatically considered for that upon admission. And so these scholarships you will have for all 4 years, as long as you maintain a 2.0 GPA. And so if you click on this little information bar, you will see that you have it is renewable for 8 semesters, as long as you're full-time undergraduate, as well as long as you maintain a 2.0 GPA. So that is what the scholarship money is for. Our merit-based scholarships are typically based on academic. Sometimes if you're an athlete, you can see athletic scholarships or talent-based, right? So music and different things of those nature. Those are all scholarships, which is gift aid that you do not have to pay back. Now the grant assistance, you can see here that our Billy Billiken received $15,050 in grant assistance. And so grant assistance at St. Louis University, we give that to you for all 4 years. So you do have to file the FAFSA each year, but we do give you your gift aid for all 4 years. And so what I would like to do is just kind of take a moment to explain how we maybe calculated that grant assistance and what grant assistance means. So when you talk about financial aid or need-based assistance, we require students to fill out the free application for federal student aid. So when you fill out that free application for federal student aid, the federal government gives you a number called your expected family contribution. And so this is the number that the federal government believes you can pay towards your son or daughter's college education every year. The FAFSA does need to be filed every year if you're receiving anything outside of scholarships. With that expected family contribution, we always get asked, what is this expected family contribution? I'm going to start referring to it as EFC because that's what it's also called. What is this EFC? How do I find out what my EFC is? The expected family contribution was actually emailed to you once you completed that FAFSA and they sent you a student aid report. It was in the middle of that report. It would say EFC and then it would give you a number. That is the number that the federal government says that you can pay toward your student's college education. And so to qualify and to calculate need-based assistance, the way financial aid works is we take that cost of attendance less your expected family contribution, which qualifies your need, right? And so the first thing obviously we would deduct is your university tuition scholarship. And then SLU tries to give as much as they can up front. So I know when you receive our financial aid offer, one of the things that they'll say is we give you everything up front because we want you to know exactly what a SLU education costs right when you receive that. So we don't negotiate, we don't match, but we give you everything that we can up front. Unfortunately, we are not in a position to cover 100% need, but we do everything that we can to help. And so grant assistance, going back to this grant assistance, that is gift aid from the university. Now, if you click on this or you hover on this button, it'll say it's an estimate of aid. And the reason why they say that is because it's calculating a couple different places that you can get grant assistance from. So first and foremost, sorry about that. First and foremost, you are, it could be SLU grant, right? So it could be gift aid from the university. If you are from the state of Missouri, it could be Missouri Access Grant. If you qualified for Missouri Bright Flight, there would be a second level that said state aid underneath this institutional aid. If you qualify for Pell, Pell is a federal grant, so that would be a third category listed here, and that goes to our neediest of students. So students that have the lowest EFC would qualify for Pell. And so if you did qualify for Pell, one of the other places that they could be getting, that they could define this grant assistance would be an SEOG grant, right? So what'll happen is you'll receive this, it's all estimated right now, and it'll be defined later on in the summer. So you'll receive an email probably in like June or July that says your financial aid offer has changed, and it's because they've defined the grant assistance. So one thing to note, the total grant assistance doesn't change. It is just recategorized or explained, right? So once they define this, you'll see if you're a Missouri resident, maybe you'll see Missouri Access Grant. If you qualify for Pell, you'll see federal aid, and that's where your Pell grant would be located as well. So those are the different amounts and the different categories of grants and scholarship. And so here you'll see your total gift aid, and the total gift aid for Billy Billiken is $37,050. So just keep that in mind, because we're going to add it in a little bit later on when we deduct all the total cost. So the total right here, it also categorizes that the estimated direct cost after the gift aid is $27,484. And there's beautiful charts down. So we're going to keep going, and then I'll explain a little bit more about that later. So then all students that fill out the FAFSA can receive a federal student loan. And so a federal student loan is actually a loan that is in the student's name. It is from the federal government. The student loans, there's two different kinds. There's subsidized and unsubsidized, as you can see on the screen right now. And so there's more similarities between these two loans than there are differences. So I will explain that. So the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans are loans that are always in a student's name. So they don't need to have a credit check or anything like that to receive them. They don't have to pay these loans back until 6 months after graduation, or they're no longer enrolled half-time. The difference between these two loans is based on, again, on that expected family contribution, right? So the subsidized loan, that loan really is calculated based on, that is a need-based loan, sorry. So that is for students that have more need. And the subsidized loan, the federal government pays for the interest while the student is in college. So that interest does not accrue on the subsidized loan. Billy Billiken did qualify for that, and he qualified for $3,500 in subsidized loan. The federal direct unsubsidized loan is a loan that any student can receive if you fill out the FAFSA, regardless of your expected family contribution. So with the unsubsidized loan, that means that interest starts accruing right away. Now, of course, students can either pay the interest as they go, or they really kind of roll it over until after they graduate. And so students do have that option. So the total amount of federal student loans that a student can take out freshman year is $5,500. Sophomore year, it'll move up to $6,500. And then junior and senior year, it'll be $7,500. So as you go in college, the federal government gives you more money to help you pay for your college education. And so these are the two different federal loans that students can receive. And so you'll see here again, it calculates what your estimated direct cost is after a gift and student loans. And so that has been brought down to $21,984. So now one of my new favorite things on the financial aid offers is this beautiful little chart, right? And so it shows you, again, the direct cost, because that's the amount that's actually billed to you. You're going to take the $64,534 and subtract your gift aid, which is scholarships and grants. And then you're going to subtract the student loans if you decide that you'd like to take out those student loans for $5,500, and you'll have an estimated remaining direct cost of $21,984. And so what happens there is that, as you remember up top, it is broken out by semester, right? And so you will still pay by semester for those costs. And so just kind of pulling that back up with your loans and everything else like that, you can see the total gift aid per semester, as well as the total loans that it'll bring down to $21,984, split up by fall as well as to spring. And so the next thing we always talk about is, so what happens and how do you pay for that remaining balance that you'll have, right? So there's a couple different things that you can do. And before I go to all of the different ways, you can click on, I'm just going to show you what our next steps look like. The first one is to explore ways to pay. So one of the ways that you can take to pay would be a Parent Plus loan. And so a Parent Plus loan is, again, a federal direct loan, just like those subsidized and unsubsidized loan. The Parent Plus loan, though, is always in the parent's name. And so it can never switch to the student. It works similarly to a federal direct loan in the sense that parents are able to take it out. You can take it out for the total cost of attendance. And that's why all those budgetary numbers are in there. So for example, if you wanted it to cover books, if you wanted it to cover a computer, those different types of things, you can take out that Parent Plus loan to cover those items. With that, the Parent Plus loan starts to be repaid. Oh, let me just back up. With the Parent Plus loan, it is not as strict as many of the loans that we as parents might be used to filling out. So it's not like getting a car loan or a home loan. The Parent Plus loan, they're pretty lenient on that. And so when you apply for the Parent Plus loan, typically, if once you're accepted, if you're not accepted, there's a couple different things that you can do. So if they don't accept you at first, what you can do is appeal the process. You can also get a co-signer for the Parent Plus loan, or you can tell them that you'd like to take the option where your student actually gets an additional $4,000 in unsubsidized loan. Now, for Billy Billiken, that $4,000 would be $2,000 per semester. It won't cover the remaining balance, but it would get his loan down lower. And so that's something that you could utilize as well. So the other loan that you could take is an alternative private loan. And so I will say when you click on these explore options, it's going to take you to our financial aid website that will give you a couple different private loans and kind of how to be a smart borrower. So if you are going to take a private loan, I would definitely make sure to utilize our financial aid website just to make sure the questions you ask and all of that. The Parent Plus loan is at a fixed interest rate, just like the subsidized and unsubsidized loan. But obviously those private alternative loans, they typically are not at a fixed rate. And so you just want to make sure you're asking the right questions before you borrow. Now, one of the ways that we do have that our students do take advantage of is they could have private scholarships. And so I'm actually going to scroll up to this little section here that is about scholarships, because you'll see right here we have a link that says explore additional scholarship opportunities. And so if you click on that, that is actually going to bring you again to our financial aid website that is going to list all of our scholarships. But really and truly what you want to go to is the private scholarships section. And so of course, as a St. Louis University student, you can bring in all of your private scholarship money, and we would encourage you to be applying for that. So if you click on that button, you'll just want to make sure you scroll down to our private scholarships and you'll fill out those applications as they request, right? So you'll click on those different links. One of the things I will tell you, as you're filling out private scholarships, you should never have to pay to apply for a scholarship. So you really want to make sure that you're being careful, which is why we provide you links for different websites that are good programs to look at for scholarships for our students. So any of the alternative scholarships you can bring in for your remaining costs. If you have an educational plan, you can bring that in to reduce the remaining costs. Typically, no matter what state you're from, what you'll have to do if you do have an educational plan that you've put money away is you'll want to reach out to that educational lender, the place that holds on to that money, and find out the process that they will have to get the money to St. Louis University. So typically they will tell you exactly how they pay out and all of that kind of good stuff, but you'll reach out to them. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about are the payment plans, right? And so if you click on this explore ways to pay, there are two different payment plans that we have. And so the way that the payment plans work is they do go by semester. So you do have to enroll in the payment plan each semester. There are 5 equal payments in the fall and 5 equal payments in the spring. So in the fall, you would enroll and it would be August, September, October, November, December. You would re-enroll for the spring and it's January, February, March, April, May. Now the two different plans will be based on your remaining balance. So you're going to look at this remaining cost and it is either 1%, which it would take 1% of your remaining balance, or it is a flat $75 fee. And so typically we say if your remaining balance is above $4,000 or $5,000, you're going to want to do the $75 flat fee. If it is below that, then sometimes the 1% actually works out better in your best interest. And so those are the payment plans that we have here at St. Louis University. Now, one of the items that is not listed here that would be listed under, I think, the remaining cost would be a category called self-help. And that is what we call federal work study. And so federal work study at St. Louis University, and it does work differently at each institution. So you want to make sure you do ask that question. The federal work study in order to receive it, a couple different things. You had to say yes on your FAFSA that you did in fact want federal work study. And then you also had to qualify for it need-based wise, right? So not everyone can qualify for federal work study. Federal work study is $2,000 per semester, so it's $4,000 per year. So if you qualify for federal work study, it's going to be listed right here. And the reason why we list it in a separate category under self-help is because it is money that the student can earn through getting a job on campus. And so they would actually get a check every 2 weeks. It's not money that like goes directly towards their tuition bill or anything like that. Here at St. Louis University, that goes directly to the student, just like a paycheck. So we do leave it up to the families to make the decision on how they're going to utilize that money. But the student won't receive all $2,000 until the end of the semester when they've earned it, right? So typically federal work study students will work anywhere from like 8 to 15 hours a week. And they typically get paid minimum wage or maybe a little bit more than minimum wage, depending on the job that they're doing. So based on the hours that they work and how much they're getting paid, they have up to $2,000 per semester to earn through a job on campus. And so again, they get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Now, one of the really great things about St. Louis University Federal Work Study is that our students can actually start applying for federal work study jobs starting June 1st in their Handshake portal. So all of you received in your admission email, you would have received your SLU.net ID, your banner ID, and your SLU email address. And so your SLU email address is active. And so once we do send out these offers, you will receive a link in your SLU email address. Once you want to go in and submit your enrollment deposit, which will be the next step we talk about, that is also in your MySLU portal. So you want to make sure you follow those instructions step by step on how to log into your portal for the first time, because there is a multi-factor authentication. And so your MySLU account really holds all access to all of the things that you'll need here at St. Louis University. All right, so moving on to next steps. Of course, we would love to see all of you submit your enrollment deposit. And if you click on this link, it'll bring you back to your MySLU account where you'll submit your enrollment deposit. So we do have one enrollment deposit of $500 that you'll select. And when you go into the payment suite in your MySLU account, you will click on, when you go into the payment suite, it'll open up a new web page, and then you'll see a bunch of tabs. And your instinct might be to submit a payment, but you really need to go all the way over to e-deposits, select e-deposit, and select the new student 500 enrollment deposit. And that secures your spot here at St. Louis University as a Billiken for the fall. And of course, you have until May 1st to do that. The next thing that I want to point out is verification. So we have families, the federal government kind of randomly selects people to be part of what they call verification. And so there are some forms that you'll have to fill out. Luckily, within this lovely Campus Logic portal, you'll just click on that and it will bring you to the forms that you need to fill out. You'll be able to attach them in there. And so it is really nice. It'll really make the whole process very smooth this year. And then you can also finalize your financial aid offer, which is when you say, yes, I want to take out both student loans. No, I don't want to take out the unsubsidized. You let us know at that point. The ones that are in an automatic, what we call accept location, will be those scholarships and grants, of course, right? So most people don't say they don't want the money that they can't return or that they don't have to pay back. So everyone typically accepts those scholarships and grants, but you'll make a decision about the student loans as well as the federal work study. And so once you submit your enrollment deposit, you're going to register for SLU 101. And if you're sitting there thinking, I've already submitted my enrollment deposit, but I'm not able to, you are correct. Our SLU 101 registration hasn't opened just yet, but it should also be open within the next week or two. You will then also submit your housing contract as well as take your placement exams. And so those are all of our next steps. And so I'm going to have my colleague Jack join us to see if there are additional questions that anyone has put in the Q&A that he'd like to ask. And I believe my colleague Hannah will also be joining us for this.
Welcome back. Thank you, Stephanie. We'll give you a break to grab a drink of water since you have just presented. Much appreciated. We are still using the Q&A feature down at the bottom of this webinar, so please put all questions in the Q&A, and we continue to watch the chat as we'll use that for links as we go through talking. I will throw out our first question to Hannah from Student Financial Services. Are indirect costs or fees different based off of my major? And what are some of the things that may differentiate that?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, sometimes. So indirect costs that could vary based on major are books. So a lot of times these costs will vary greatly between students who are maybe in arts and sciences versus students who are in more STEM focused fields. Books tend to be a little bit more expensive in maybe engineering, some of the more technical degrees. So that's where you could see some of those indirect costs be different. There are also course fees that are associated with certain potential like lab classes or other classes that you could take at the university. So you'll see additional course fees go on for, they're pretty nominal, like $55, $65, something like that, based on the different supplies that are required for that class within the lab. And so there are some classes within different majors that require more of those classes that have course fees. So that's where you could see some difference on, what those indirect costs look like for specific students. But those that you see on the actual offer letter are purely estimates. And so that's just kind of what, as Stephanie was saying, represents the total max budget that's estimated for each student that's coming through.
Thank you so much. Stephanie, would you mind referencing the EFC again and maybe some of the information that is calculated in that?
Sure, that's a great
how that
question.
is used to determine your aid.
Sure, absolutely. So the expected family contribution is a number that the federal government calculates based on all of the information that you fill into your FAFSA. So it's not just a straight percentage of like your income or anything like that. It'll take into consideration families' assets, the amount of money in their savings, depending on the age of the parent. It'll also protect some based on the age of the parent and the closer they are to retirement. So all of those factors, it also takes into account the student's income and the student's savings account and their assets if they have any investments or anything like that. And so they look at both of those and they calculate this number, which is the number that they say that you can pay towards your son or daughter's college education. Now, I will tell you that I've been doing this a very long time, and I've never met anyone that said, I can write a check directly for this number. And my colleagues are laughing because they agree with me. And so we know that number is sometimes much higher than you anticipated it to be. However, that is the number that we're required to use to calculate your need-based assistance. And so I'm just going to scroll down again to the cost. So again, we look at they look at the total cost of attendance, and then you can subtract your expected family contribution, right? So if you were looking at this, I'm just going to make up a nice round number. So if you were looking at the total cost of attendance and say your expected family contribution is $10,000, that means you would have a remaining need of $60,676. So then you would take any of the additional aid that St. Louis University offers you. Of course, unfortunately, we're not in a place to meet 100% need. So if you were looking at some place that did that, that would be how they calculated it. We do everything we can to get you as close to that as possible through grant assistance, loans, all of that kind of good stuff. Did that answer the question, Jack?
It did. Thank you so much. Just a follow-up to that, another question that was just posted. Unfortunately, it is the government that you are filing the FAFSA with, and they are the ones determining what information they are using and what qualifies as income and what does not. That is not us. So we are not, we just have to follow their rules in terms of calculating that EFC and then how we determine aid based off of that. While we're on that topic, Hannah, the FAFSA was filed using information from 2 years ago. But what if my income or financial situation has changed now from what it was then? What do I do?
Yeah, so we know, especially living through a global pandemic, that is a common sentiment among families. So, and because FAFSA makes you report income information from 2 years ago, as Jack said, your circumstances could be really different. So we have a process we call special circumstance, or you might have heard it called professional judgment at other institutions, where we can basically collect a little bit of information as to how your circumstance has changed and conduct a review to see if your financial situation now will significantly impact your EFC and therefore the aid that your student is qualifying for. So we will pop a link in the chat for our special circumstance webpage. There you can see the exact circumstances that we would kind of consider as special circumstance that would dramatically, potentially affect your EFC and therefore potentially generate additional aid for your student. So things like loss of income, loss of a parent or spouse, things like that would likely or could maybe generate additional aid. And so we just will collect that additional information from you and, as I said, be able to conduct that review to see if we can get you any additional aid. I will say with that special circumstance process, a lot of times, like with a loss of income, loss of job, or especially with a loss of a parent or spouse, that is a devastating financial circumstance that has happened. And unfortunately, we just really don't have the room to impact aid offers all that much. And so really what we're looking at through the special circumstances is just a matter of a few $1,000s in terms of adjusting aid. So it's not going to be anything where it's going to be, kind of filling that gap for you or filling that remaining balance for you. But we're certainly happy to kind of do that review and see how that might impact your aid.
Absolutely. Could you also answer kind of what you're talking about impacting aid, the difference of living on campus versus living off campus, and how that impacts cost of attendance and aid?
Yeah, absolutely. So for cost of attendance for students that are living with their parents at home, really your only direct billable costs then from the university would be your tuition and your mandatory fees. And then, parking or health insurance if you have that. So, but that's really the only direct billable costs that you'll see. So that doesn't mean that your housing cost is virtually zero. There are still costs that your parents are paying for you by, allowing you to live at home and eat under their roof and things like that. But they just won't be billed directly to the university. If you're a student that's living on campus and on-campus housing, that room and board will be billed directly to your student account. And so for students that are living on campus, their cost of attendance, their direct costs are going to be higher than students living with their parents. And so technically, if we go back to the kind of need calculation that Stephanie was talking about earlier, if we look at their cost of attendance minus their EFC, those students with room and board charges are going to have higher need because they have higher cost. And so typically if you see, grant assistance based on the cost of attendance of you living on campus, that grant assistance could change based on your decision to commute from home if you're eligible to live with a parent and commute if you're within that 25-mile radius of campus. So that is a change that you could potentially see if you have a grant assistance on your offer letter and you're considering your costs. It's not exactly, just let me just minimize the cost by, choosing to live at home and then you get to keep all of that grant assistance. But that's something that your admission counselor definitely will kind of walk you through and talk you through those different options if you're kind of weighing your options of commuting versus living on campus and still trying to make that decision.
Awesome, thank you. Stephanie, what if I received an outside scholarship? What do I do with that and how does it impact my offer?
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on that. We're very proud of you for applying for outside scholarships. So if you click on any of those links that bring you to our financial aid website, when you click on the private scholarship ones, that actually brings you to where you would reach out and let us know where the private scholarships and the amount. And so if you were to click on, I'm just going to go ahead and scroll to it. Explore additional scholarships. As a reminder, that goes directly to our scholarship page. And so you'll see our various different merit-based scholarships, and then you'll see private scholarships. In the frequently asked questions, one of the questions says, where do I send this? And so you will actually just send an email. You can actually email sfs@slu.edu and let them know of your scholarship, and they'll add it to your account, and it'll be listed under gift aid. The one thing you want to keep in mind is, remember you received those 3 IDs. One of the IDs was your SLU ID, or what we also refer to as your banner ID. So you'll want to let the outside scholarship location know that they do need to include that on the check that they send to St. Louis University so that it gets attached to your account quickly. So you'll email sfs@slu.edu, they'll add it in, and then once the scholarship committee sends them the check, it'll have your SLU ID written on it. And oh, sorry, the last question was how it'll affect your aid. It'll just go towards your remaining balance. Now, I don't think I've ever seen it, like someone bring in so much outside scholarship that it's changed. But obviously, if for some reason you bring in more than tuition, then it would change. But really and truly, it'll just go towards your remaining balance.
Thank you so much. Would you also like to talk about parking fees?
Oh, sure. So when it comes to parking, first-year students are allowed to have cars on campus. You just have to pay for parking. And so as I believe Hannah was mentioning, if you're a commuter student, there is a commuter parking plan as well as a residential parking plan. And really and truly, when it comes down to it, it's a matter of if you want to park in our Grand / Laclede parking garage. And so they will vary on different places that you would like to park on campus. And so you sign up for that through when you're here for SLU 101, you can enroll in it for the semester. You actually enroll in through parking and card services. So you can add it at any point for that upcoming semester. And so, or you could go over to parking and card services and they'll help you as well, but they'll help you add that in.
Thank you so much. Hannah, can you talk about the timeline for accepting the federal student loans? When that is available and when should I have it done by? And is there a timeline on when it's too late?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those federal loans, you really can accept them anytime in the aid year. So technically the 2022-2023 aid year will expire in June of 2023. So as long as you accept it before June of 2023, you'll be able to still get those funds. However, to be the most helpful for your cost of attendance, typically all of your aid will pay in kind of 2 installments. As Stephanie was talking about, your billed per semester. So your aid will be cut in half and paid at the beginning of the fall when your fall charges go on, and then at the beginning of your spring when your spring charges go on. So if you're wanting that loan money to go towards both your fall and spring balance, you'll want to accept those at least 10 days before classes start. That's when we disperse all of that aid and it's paid to student accounts. So the first day of classes is going to be late August 2022. So as long as you accept that loan amount, by, I would say August 1 is a really safe date to have all of that accepted. Now you will get your bill from the university sometime in July. And so at that point, you have a really clear picture of what your charges look like for the semester, what your balance is for the semester. And that's when families really in earnest start really making their financial plan and figuring out, okay, we can put this on a payment plan or we need some additional assistance. And so there are a few additional steps that you'll have to take to formally get those loans paid to your student account. So you'll have to accept them as part of your aid offer, but then you'll also have to go out and sign a master promissory note, which is basically just saying, I accept that this is a loan and I will eventually have to pay this back. This is what my interest rate is, things like that. And then you'll go through loan entrance counseling as well. Again, just making sure that you're fully aware of the commitment that you're taking on by accepting that loan and making sure that you are aware of what the repayment options look like and the consequences of not paying on time and that sort of thing. So you will have to complete those 2 additional steps before your loans can pay towards your student account. So I would say, in July, that's a really good time once you have your bill to be able to get all of those ducks in a row and check all your boxes off of your financial aid checklist. So making sure that you've gone in and accepted those awards and then completed those additional steps. And don't worry, we will send you lots of communication and reminders letting you know where to go for all of that and making sure that you need to complete it.
Stephanie, if I would like to study abroad, how is that going to impact my aid?
That's a great question. And we certainly here at St. Louis University would encourage you to study abroad. So we, of course, have our own campus in Madrid. That is our second degree granting institution. We're 2 campuses that are degree granting. And so all of our majors are allowed to study abroad at the Madrid campus. One of the really great benefits about our Madrid campus is that, of course, all of your classes transfer, but so does all of your scholarship and financial aid. So all of that will go with you to help you offset the cost of attending SLU Madrid. Now, I will tell you, of course, that'll go towards tuition and all of that. But where the money comes in studying abroad is the travel individually, right? So those are all those personal choice decisions that you'll have to make and want to save up for. Now, we also have 45 SLU approved programs. So if you attend any of our SLU approved programs, your scholarship and financial aid will go with you, just like your classes will transfer. So if you have the opportunity and you can, definitely study abroad.
It's a great opportunity, do it. Hannah, if I have a sibling who happens to be a current undergraduate student at SLU, is this impacted? Is there any benefit in my financial offer?
Yeah, so if you have a sibling that's currently attending St. Louis University with you, you would both be eligible for a family award. And so you can apply for the family award on our website. There's a form section where you can find that PDF form. If you fill it out, we'll be able to certify both of your enrollments and then add that additional family award to each of your financial aid offers. I will say too, just because we got into a little bit nitty gritty with the EFC, when you have 2 children in college, that does factor into your EFC as well. And that doesn't just go for 2 children. If you are one of the lucky ones that has maybe 3 or 4 children in college at the same time, that will factor into your EFC as well and kind of divide that among all of your children that are going through.
Thank you. Stephanie, if I received an admission letter from you with a merit scholarship, is that merit scholarship amount going to increase each year, and will tuition increase each year?
That is a great question, right? So our merit-based scholarship is the same amount for all 4 years, as long as you maintain that 2.0 GPA. So all of our merit-based scholarships are renewable for 8 semesters, as long as you maintain that 2.0 GPA. That being said, it does not increase per semester. However, our tuition is set by the Board of Trustees each year. And so that does increase per year. They really do everything they can to limit the increase. I would say our increases are anywhere, and I've been at SLU about 14 years, so our increases are anywhere from 1% to 5%, but typically they land right about 3% to 3.5% per year. So the Board of Trustees is very conscious of trying to not increase tuition every year, and so they do everything they can to limit that increase. One of the things, though, I'll just add in really quickly that does increase every year are those direct loans, right? So your subsidized and unsubsidized loan, the total of that does increase every year until junior, senior year.
A follow-up question, will there be scholarships for me to apply for as a current student?
Oh, that is a great question. So there are current student scholarships. So you're not eligible as an incoming first-year student for them. But one of I've mentioned this My SLU account. It really will become your best friend and you will be very active in it once you are a SLU student. There is what we call a scholarship suite. And so when you click on that scholarship suite, you're going to fill out kind of an application. And then there are different current students or continuing student scholarships that you can apply for. Some of them, maybe they're leadership, service oriented. There's a variety of different scholarships you can apply for. Some of them even could be based on your major, different things like that.
Thank you. Hannah, if I take a summer session, does this impact my financial offer or does it apply to that?
Yeah, so summer classes, summer is a completely separate term. And so you'll have fall term, spring term, and then summer term if you're choosing to take classes there. So it'll be billed separately like fall and spring are. And typically SLU-Aid does not pay for summer courses. You can, however, fill out the summer aid application and be able to get your remaining loan eligibility if you're wanting to take out loans for those summer courses. But summer is a little bit tricky because typically that SLU-Aid doesn't pay. So your scholarship and your grant assistance won't go towards classes in the summer.
Thank you. Probably good one last time, Stephanie, if you'd like to go over subsidized and unsubsidized loans.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the subsidized and unsubsidized loans, those are the loans from the federal government given to students. So they are always in the student's name. Students do not have to qualify for them through a credit check or anything like that. However, the difference in the subsidized and unsubsidized will be based on your need, right? So going back to, we've talked a lot about this expected family contribution, but you would have to qualify for the subsidized based on that EFC. It would have to be low enough to qualify. If you have a subsidized loan, really the only difference in those two loans is who pays the interest while you're in college. And so both of the loans are in the student's name. They don't have to pay them till 6 months after graduation, or they're no longer enrolled half-time. For the subsidized, because that is a need-based loan, the federal government pays the interest for the student while they're in college. The unsubsidized is not need-based, and that accrues interest right away.
Thank you. Always helpful to hear again. I still get confused. Hannah, if I am an international student and unable to file the FAFSA, do I need to submit the CSS profile for consideration?
Yeah, so this is a change this year. So we no longer require students to file the CSS profile to qualify for additional aid from the university. So if you're an international student, based on your region of citizenship, we guarantee a minimum amount of SLU aid that we're going to offer. So the first kind of big piece of that is going to be your merit scholarship that you'd automatically be assessed for based on your application for admission. And so if your scholarship that you automatically qualified for kind of meets that threshold that you would qualify for based on your region of citizenship, then you've kind of met that maximum, and you wouldn't be eligible for additional aid from the university. If your merit scholarship was lower than that threshold, then we would make up the difference there with an international award. That would be a grant that would go on top of your merit scholarship to kind of meet that threshold for your region of citizenship. So there's nothing additional that you have to do on the student side. There's no additional applications or financial aid applications or anything like that that you have to fill out anymore. Those will just automatically be awarded to you.
Thank you. I think that about wraps up the questions that we have. I've seen the questions slow down, the chat slow down. Hannah or Stephanie, anything that we didn't cover benefited the group, or how do we feel?
I feel pretty good that we've covered everything.
Awesome. My checklist was complete.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you want to mention how to sign up for a financial aid appointment with your admission counselor?
Absolutely. Would you like me to discuss it?
Sure, go ahead. I'll scroll down to where it'll be in here.
Awesome. Well, it is a part of my list of things to go over here as we do wrap up. So I will say thank you so much to Stephanie and Hannah and for their wealth of knowledge on everything when it comes to the financial offer here at SLU. As Stephanie mentioned, several resources to you are going to be through that My SLU portal. So when you received your admission letter to SLU, you received access to this. Make sure that you are signing in, that you are familiarizing yourself with that portal. This is separate than the application portal. So be sure to, that you're signing into the My SLU portal and not the application portal with that information. A lot of things, especially from Student Financial Services, will be sent to your SLU email account. Your SLU email account can be accessed from the Office 365 icon on the Tools tab of the My SLU portal, as well as several of the next steps to enrollment here at SLU. So once you receive your financial offer, if you've committed to us, you will submit your deposit. The enrollment deposit can be paid through the payment suite, which is one of those tools on the My SLU portal. Once that is processed in our system, you will then be able to access the housing icon where you can submit your housing contract or housing exemption and learning community contract for your living next year on campus. And as Stephanie mentioned, the SLU 101 icon is set to come out over the next couple of weeks. SLU 101 is our summer orientation program. And at SLU 101, you will register for your first semester courses. So it is very important that you register for SLU 101 once that is available as well. All of these resources are going to be on the Tools tab of the My SLU portal. So be sure just to familiarize yourself with that and look for the differences for those to come. As Hannah mentioned, we will be sending financial offers to students over the next couple of weeks, and you are more than welcome to schedule an appointment, a financial aid appointment with your admission counselor. You're going to receive invitations to a variety of different programs. Some of these will be in person, in market. Look at that. We said it for the first time in 2 years, that we will be meeting with you face to face in some of our key markets. So look for an invitation to come from those. Of course, we're also going to be doing virtual opportunities as well. You will find Calendly links for your admission counselors in these invitations, which will take you to a host of different events that you can sign up with us for those in a variety of different ways. Your transfer counselors, you can find their Calendly links to schedule appointments with them right on the transfer admission website. And we would be happy to review your financial offer, explain anything more further to you, and then talk about those next steps to enrollment, the payment options, and all of the above here at SLU. Thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. We enjoyed having you here on this webinar. As I mentioned, check your email often for the upcoming events and next steps to enrollment here at SLU. And we really just hope that you take away from this, we're here for you. We want to help you as you go through these next steps and hopefully find that SLU is the right fit for you this fall. Reach out to us in any ways that we can help you through that process, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night, everybody.